What if Jalen Brunson had remained in Dallas the whole time? Would they be a championship team? Would they be better off than with Kyrie? Let's talk about it. The reason why we're making this video is kind of a reaction to Jalen Brunson's recent appearance on All the Smoke, with Matt Barnes and Steven Jackson. And, they were going through the typical interview style. Jalen Brunson was opening up, breaking down his career, his come up, and everything. Pretty interesting because I don't really know the guy's personality like that. He's never really been in the spotlight, so I appreciated the interview. And at some point, Matt Barnes asked him, address the elephant in the room, which was, what if? Could you have stayed in Dallas, and what do you think you would have done over there? And to that, Jalen Brunson had this to say. So we're going to play the clip, and then we're going to come back and react to it. But before I do so, please like the video and subscribe to the channel.
There a chance in Dallas? The bright lights of New York will call you name. Talk to us about your free agency.
There was a chance.
Okay.
There's a chance. I really did want to stay in Dallas. I think before my fourth season in Dallas, my last season in Dallas, we tried to extend our contract, whatever we can get. The most we can get was like 4 years and $55 million. And so obviously we wanted to do that. I wanted to stay there. I thought I would be there for a long time, and I liked my role there. It's funny because my agent was like, "Man, you can do so much. You can get more." I'm saying like, well, I want to be safe. I'm not trying to gamble right now. This is not something you can really gamble with if it's out there.
Right.
And so, but they were like, we want to see where we're at, like 20, 25 games into the season. But we were like, all right, well, if we're not going to do it, I kind of don't want to do it until after the season. I'm not trying to think about this.
During the season, right.
Yeah, so there's a period where Luka went out.
Knicks, free agency.
Started to start. I was playing really well. I think I was averaging like 20 and like 6 maybe, whatever. It was about that 20, 25 mark. And so we went back. We're like, hey, like, if the deal's there, we're thinking about it. Like, I'll do it. Like, right now. And still, it was no. Like, it wasn't a hard no. It was just like, we want to see. So I'm like,
this was Dallas.
This is Dallas. This is still in Dallas. Okay. Trade deadline comes. I'm like thinking, like, all right, well, if I'm not getting extended, I'm probably going to get traded. Probably. I think the way I've been playing, like, there's just like,
playing well, right?
I'm playing somewhat decent. And so that didn't happen. And then, so like the deal came on the table after the trade deadline. I was like, no, I think I've outgrown that now.
Right. Okay.
Personally, that's what I thought. I was like, I think I've outgrown that. Obviously, going to playoffs, Luka gets hurt like second to last game of the season. And so he's out for the first 3 games, and I obviously did what I did.
Ain't no looking back.
All right, so how do we feel about this? Do we feel that Jalen Brunson could have been better had he stayed on the Mavs? And do we feel like the Mavs actually fumbled the guy, a great talent? When I first heard the clip, I was like, yeah, that's a big sell on the Mavs because Jalen Brunson has so much potential and because of the amount that he was willing to take at first. If you do the math, 55 millions divided by 4 years, that's roughly 14 millions. So for the quality of player that he's grown to become, that's obviously a big bargain, right? They lost him right after their first conference finals appearance since they won a ring in 2011, if I'm not mistaken. And Jalen Brunson has stepped up huge in the first round against the Jazz, and he showed real flashes of greatness when Luka Doncic was hurt. And that kind of sparked maybe Luka had help all along, and he just has to be better in the playoffs, right? It felt like him and Luka really figured out something chemistry-wise once Luka came back in the second round. And, they were kind of trading high souls between Luka, Jalen Brunson, and even Dinwiddie was playing very good in that playoff run. And, it felt like the Mavs had something. Tim Hardaway was hitting threes, all that, right? And now you see what he's grown to become. He's averaging 27.6 points per game, which is 7th overall in scoring in the NBA. So shout out to him with 6.5 assists and roughly 4 rebounds on 48, 41, and 83 splits. So that's great. And he's leading the New York Knicks to a 4th seed that, in my opinion, wasn't expected despite the great season last year, because their roster is good, is solid, especially with the addition of the Bogdanoviches of the world or the OGs of the world. I like the roster, but it's not like they got a great roster. I know Philly got injured, so they kind of fell. The Bucks are disappointing, but still, you have to lift your team way up there. And he's clearly the number 1 guy. Julius Randle is playing good, or okay, depending on who you ask, but it's Jalen Brunson's team. And this is the first time in a while that I felt like, okay, the Knicks are actually relevant. I mean, to be fair, since Melo, it's been the first time. Never heard anyone speak about Jalen Brunson that much. His stock has never been that high before, right? But if you remember correctly, what the narrative was when the Mavs lost in the conference finals to the Warriors, who went on to win the championship, the narrative was that Luka still didn't have enough help. Because if you watch that series, if you remember how it genuinely felt that, okay, that was the team's best, that was the ceiling, and that Luka would not win the championship with Jalen Brunson as his number two. That was the overall consensus. So obviously now with hindsight 2020, we can be like, oh, actually, had they just waited, Jalen Brunson would have blossomed into a great player or whatever. They could have done this and that. But first off, the very first question that we need to ask is, would Jalen Brunson be the same guy had he stayed under Luka Doncic? That's a big question mark, just because of how ball dominant Luka Doncic is. So we don't know. And right now, Jalen Brunson is having the ball in his hand. If you watch the Knicks, especially with the Tom Thibodeau offense, which is pretty much no offensive scheme, Jalen Brunson has the ball in his hands every time. His usage rate is through the roof. And that just wouldn't be the case with the Mavs unless Luka Doncic was hurt or on the bench. So, and even if we assume that Jalen Brunson would have still been as good as he is right now, are we ready to call officially Jalen Brunson better than Kyrie Irving? Are we ready to do that? That's the first question. And now, in the way in which we will answer that question, keep in mind that he has to be as a number two option. Because as a number one option, you can make a case that even if Kyrie is still better than Jalen Brunson, you probably still want your team to be built around Jalen Brunson over Kyrie Irving as a number one option for obvious reasons. Although Kyrie Irving has kind of chilled on the philotherapy and, he's more focused on basketball right now, Jalen Brunson is by far the most reliable option of the two. They're putting up similar numbers. He's less likely to leave. He's less injury prone. And he seems like a better leader overall. At least he's better at imposing his leadership style. He's kind of leading by example rather than Kyrie when he was put in a situation of leaderships. Though he was younger, he was really trying to lead a bunch of guys in a way that they weren't really willing to follow like that. Plus, him taking games off and everything, the example just wasn't great. He was just great on the court when he was here, and then he was always injured in the playoffs. You don't have to worry about none of that with Jalen Brunson. So as a number one option, give me Jalen Brunson over Kyrie, though personally I believe that Kyrie is still better. But as a number two guy, give me Kyrie. If you look at Kyrie's stats this year, as a number two options, sharing the ball with Luka Doncic, who is extremely ball dominant, Kyrie is still putting up 25.5 points per game, 5 rebounds and 5 assists on 49, 41, 88 splits from the floor, which is insane efficiency. And Kyrie, I believe that is a better floor raiser for your team. Like now, I like the Mass Foundation. I like that duo better. And I feel that if they are able to build solidly around them, around those two, I could see them making the finals maybe if they catch fire and if they face the right matchup in the playoffs. I could see that. With Jalen Brunson, I just didn't believe it. Both guys are, let's call them defensive liabilities at this point just because they're so small. But Kyrie, when he gets hot, he can get hotter. I believe he's a bigger killer than Jalen Brunson in the playoffs, especially when Kyrie gets in that zone. What he's shown us a few instances as a number two option is off the chart. Is more unstoppable when hot. And he's better off the ball. I don't think Jalen Brunson would be able to cook the way Kyrie is right now as a number two option. And even as a catch and shoot 3-point shooter, Jalen Brunson is amazing. He's shooting 51% from the field this season. So you might be like, oh, yeah. But Luka would generate a bunch of open threes for Jalen Brunson that he would cash in the bank every time. But Kyrie is right there with him. He's making 49% of his open threes right now as well. So it's very close. But as a number two option, give me Kyrie. Now it's on the Mavs, it's on Mark Cuban to figure out, okay, let me get them the right role players, the right centers, and the right system, and then they'll be in business. But with Jalen Brunson, I don't think that Luka's chances as winning a ring would be, better. And there's also an argument to be made that Luka might have asked out. I did not make that trade because Luka, it was a lot of reports that was coming out that he was fed up with the lack of help and everything, or the lack of consistency as far as the number 2 option. So they had to go get a superstar, and they did just that. So I understand. Again, you have to keep in mind that when the Mavs weren't willing to break the bank over Jalen Brunson, it's not because they didn't think it was good. It's because they didn't believe that Jalen Brunson was the right number 2 to win a championship. And for that, a lot of people say, yeah, rare Mark Cuban L and all that. But I think I agree with him deep down. So anyways, we can close the video right here. These are my thoughts. If you made it this far, first off, I appreciate you. Please like the video. Please subscribe to the channel. But more importantly, let's have that conversation in the comment section. Do you believe that the Mavs would have been better off keeping Jalen Brunson? And do you believe that Jalen Brunson is better than Kyrie right now? And who would you want as your number 2 behind Luka? Jalen Brunson or Kyrie? Let's talk about it. It's been your boy, and I'll see you guys later. Peace.